Hello, SCAD Radio. This is your general manager, Megan Atwell, here with...
My name is Casper Hughes, and I play in the band Caroline.
So I did want to ask, since it is a fairly eclectic album sound-wise, how would you yourself categorize your guys' sound?
It kind of depends who asks me. But I suppose I'm talking to a music fan here, a head. So
a music head, indeed, yes.
Yeah. So I guess it's just it's a mix. I mean, I suppose if it was to fit into one genre, I would probably say post rock. But there's quite a big folk influence. There's kind of like Midwest emo kind of. We were lots of those bands when we started, at least. And I think like the general kind of chords that we like to play. I suppose an element of minimalism, I suppose, as well. Perhaps, yeah.
So, I mean, even like in terms of composing the songs, like as a group, everything feels fairly sparse in a lot of areas. Like I mean, first two tracks on the album, like pretty obviously are more furnished, I guess, than the rest of the album. So when you're composing those songs, what's the process of deciding what to subtract and what to emphasize?
I think it's I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule with that. So what to add and what to subtract? That's a good question. I suppose I guess in terms of subtracting, it's like I think most of our songs go through quite a few iterative processes. Basically, there'll be stuff in early versions of each song which we just, after a while, we just realize are just kind of, they made sense at one point, but we've realized actually if we kind of keep trying to pare it back, the song, to what it is at its essence, it's kind of unnecessary that this part or element, as you said before, like furnishing in some way, or just like that don't feel totally necessary. Those are the bits that we can subtract, I suppose. That's kind of, I think, in many ways the way we kind of look at it. Yeah,
I mean, even I feel like as a listener, the album feels like it has this sense of like unraveling, almost, where the first tracks are very full and sort of together, and they have their own very distinct kind of energy to them. And as it goes on, it gets more and more ambiguous and sort of like it feels more concept driven. So to me, it almost feels like when you guys are removing things, you're removing them almost to the point where with one more thing removed, the song would just fall apart. And that sort of like tenuousness is very interesting. So would you guys consider your debut, would you consider it a concept album in one way or another? Or do you feel like that just happened naturally in the way that you were sequencing it?
So yeah, as you say, the first two songs are the kind of most like full band. The two of the earliest songs we wrote, they're basically the two first songs that we wrote as a band, and our songwriting process developed for sure. And in terms of it being a concept album, I wouldn't say it is a concept album, but the kind of conceptual underpinnings of each song are very important. So obviously, like skydiving onto the library roof is like, that kind of that 2-note phrase, and just like, I guess it's the kind of the minimal nature of those 2 notes, and it's the unison. It is being in unison together throughout it all. That is the concept. Thinking about songs conceptually was really important to us, and like talking about what the songs are and how we can kind of further the concept behind them. So, for example, eavesdropping, the concept behind that is there being multiple rooms in which we're recording in, and those rooms juxtaposing with other kind of with the other rooms and the forms and the kind of the different forms of recording juxtaposing with one another. So there's lots of close elements, there's lots of distant elements in other rooms, there's kind of more like scratchy elements with kind of smooth elements. Those kind of juxtapositions in terms of recording spaces and recording styles, that was the kind of concept behind that one. And I suppose as you write with your other fellow musicians, you as you kind of keep playing together, you reach new interesting ways of playing together and ways of thinking about your music, and then you talk about it, and you talk about what it is you've reached and what's interesting about it in particular, and then from that you try and explore those ideas more, I suppose. And so when you talk about kind of whether the album is conceptual, it is conceptual in that sense, and that the ideas behind them are something that they're very important to us. But as a whole, I don't know if there's a concept in terms of the whole narrative of the album, if you know what I mean. I think that's the way it happened, the way it's went. But it's nice that it has that kind of dissembling kind of structure, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. There is that very textural element across the album. Like it feels raw in a lot of ways, but that rawness really adds to it. And one of my favorite moments of that is the outro to Good Morning, with that like seemingly kind of random, like very raw, intimate guitar kind of just popping in. So it kind of, it gives it this like enchanting and sort of grounding feeling to it. So how did you guys come upon the idea to like make it sound like that? And how much of it was improvisational?
We recorded that quite early on, maybe like 2018 or maybe like summer of 2018. We wanted it to sound like kind of just like very clipped bursts of sound coming in and out. We recorded it in a barn in France. Yeah, it has that kind of real roomy sound, and when the part ends, you can kind of hear the kind of noise of the room also kind of just cutting out, which I think is kind of quite a cool effect. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're interested in kind of interjection, and kind of interjection being quick and sudden and fast and clipped, and doing that kind of both manually with the way we play, but also using kind of cutting things in production.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say it was recorded in a barn in France. That is so cool. I know another artist that I interviewed, Bambara, they mentioned that they recorded one of their albums in like a cabin in the woods, and that they said that those songs, unless it's recorded with like a milieu of other things happening around it, they feel sort of homeless. The songs don't feel like they have their own space. Do you feel like when you listen to those songs now, having been there when they were recorded and in those places, do you like see them in your head?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think like for us, where things are recorded is just like, it's just so important. I kind of a big, that's the right word, but like maxim by which we like write music is the room in which it's recorded in, or whether it's outside or wherever, is as important as the notes that are being played, because the impact that a certain kind of environment will have on the way the notes will sound and resonate or clip, or even like the feeling that you'll have entering a certain room, and the way in which that will affect the way in which you play, will ultimately impact the sound like that. So like the place is very important to us. So yeah, no, because of that, and the way in which the importance we placed on it, each room and in which we recorded each part, each part is definitely is imprinted in my memory for sure, because it was like such a key part of the kind of compositional process.
When you guys started playing together, were there any influences musically or otherwise that you guys were playing off of to sort of come up with ideas?
Actually, I think it was 2018, I saw I can't remember the 2017 or 2018, I saw Mount Erie play at Le Guessou Festival in Holland, which is an amazing festival, and he played in this cathedral, and he did those incredibly like just like devastating kind of death albums, which were just, and it's the first time I'd ever seen him. I never heard his music before, and I saw that performance. It was incredible.
That's a baptism by fire for his
really. Honestly, it was crazy. Like it was crazy, but and kind of got really into his music, and then kind of got Jasper into it as well. And I think Mike had already heard stuff before. And then we kind of got into the early microphone stuff, and he has this whole obsession with the microphone as a kind of like compositional tool, and like and I think over the course of writing the album, we also we kind of got obsessed by recording and just thinking about, you know, mic technique and distances between mics and what that could do for your overall sounds. So yeah, I think that was definitely an inspiration for sure.
For sure. So Rough Trade is a pretty big name to have snagged for a first album, and with no singles or anything preceding it. So how did that come to be?
There's like quite a few different stories about this that we kind of have been talking about recently, but we played a gig in Hackney in London, and I think the Rough Trade A&R Paul Jones was going along to see a different band. he was in like a kebab shop like after the show, and he asked someone, well, what was that band like who opened? And someone was like, oh, they're rubbish, and then someone else was like, oh no, they're actually really good. And then I think he like managed to get like a link of our music from somehow and sent it over to Jeff and Jeanette, who kind of run the label, and they kind of were really into it. I think it was Dark Blue that he sent over, and he was into it. And then, you know, it was at that point that Paul started kind of emailing us, and it was just crazy. Like, it was, you know, I think at the time I was working a job that I was kind of enjoyed, but I was commuting lots and just fried. And suddenly we were getting these like emails from Rough Trade being like, you know, kind of just quite excited emails, and we just kind of couldn't really believe it. And it gave me an excuse to leave my job, although obviously we didn't get an advance, so I had to find other work. But it gave me kind of a chance to spend more time playing music, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the rest is history, really.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, as an artist, if like there's a lot of moments where you kind of think about those flukes and those little moments where, thank God for that one person at the kebab shop who was into you guys.
I know. I don't know who it is, but I'll give him a big kiss, big smooch.
He gets a credit in the album next time.
Yeah. Whoever it is, come forward, and I will credit you in the second album.
I am curious too, since you've been touring the album and like playing things live. I know from having seen various artists and interviewing various artists that when you play a song live, it kind of takes on a different identity because it gives it a chance to sort of evolve into something else, right? So are there any permutations of songs that have developed from playing live that you almost prefer to their recorded counterpart?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you know this track, but it's a B-side on it's called BRJ, and it's very like spare, minimal kind of almost like ambient kind of track. And now it's like a big kind of full scale kind of half improvised thing that we do with the rest of the band, where me and Jasper and Mike will loop our parts, but there'll be lots of it kind of improvising, you know, from kind of the rest of the crew. And I reached a really good point. There's one point last year, I can't remember exactly when it was over the course of our touring, where it had reached this really beautiful, great point where we'd kind of become accustomed to it, and we'd been playing so much together that we played it so well. Like, and actually, do you know what? There's a recording of our set at Earth in London in I think it's November or October last year. There's a recording of that whole thing, and the first song we play is BRJ, and I think it's pretty good. And we listened back to it, and we've kind of been like, that was good, actually. That was good. You know, we're really like listening to each other and playing really well.
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting. I think that something that I, as someone who cannot play music to save her life but deeply enjoys listening to it, am very interested in, is that sort of the, I guess, necessary interplay when you're improvising on stage specifically. How do you go about like playing off of each other? Like, is there signals that you give to each other? So like, oh, I'm going to crescendo now, like go up to, you know?
Well, if it's improvised, which, you know, I mean, most of our music, you know, isn't. But for example, on BRJ, I mean, I think it's all about. I mean, there are definitely physical cues that people can use, but I think it's just about listening. It's really about listening. Like, being able to improvise well it's all about being able to listen and being able to hear what everyone else is doing and see where you can, where there's a space for you and where you can fit in, and or you know, or not to play, basically. And knowing when to not play is also like incredibly important.
Yeah.
thing to master. So I mean, yeah, there's definitely like a physical kind of element to improvising, but also I think it's just being able to really, really listen and think about the overall composition and think about what it needs. Yeah.
I'm sure that those 5, I mean now 6 years of playing together really help too, because you can notice patterns in how other people play and the chemistry is there. I'm sure that makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
And as a last thing, speaking of visually arresting, how did the album cover come to be?
I think a friend of Jasper's, performance artist friend, had done a performance down there by this old, I can't remember what they're called. Is it pillboxes or something? So they're old like World War II like fortifications. So they were there basically on the coast, you know, for there to be kind of machine gunners, like if the Germans invaded, you know, by boat. But they've kind of slipped down the rock onto the beach and at this stretch. And so he knew someone who'd done a performance there, and we just thought it looks pretty amazing. Like the angle it is in the sand, and the kind of like mossy but like kind of brutal thing going on. And we just went with we just kind of went. I think it's on the Isle of Sheppey, which is, I'm gonna get it wrong. I think it's in Kent, in England. And we went. There was a campsite nearby, so we went camping the night before, and got up really early in the morning because the tide was so that you had to kind of get there early in order to go when the tide was out. Got there really early and just like took some photos of us doing stuff, like kind of throwing towels and just like, I know we took a few implements and chairs and stuff and just like, and ladders, and just like did some things and just took some photos of it. And yeah, we were really happy with it. I love that cover. Like I feel it's like, I think it looks really good. I'm really, really happy with it. I'm just like really proud of it and think it's a really cool image. And yeah, it was a fun day as well. Like it was a fun trip. So it has good, good memories.
Good associations. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I agree. It's a very good cover. I mean, I remember when I was like looking through, like, because my friend and I found it because we were doing like coverage of the album, we were reviewing it. And I remember when I saw the cover, I was like, I'm listening to this one first. It's just such an interesting image, and it definitely, what you were saying about that like angle that it's at and how it's on, I mean, like in a very like almost biblical sense, the like building your house on the sand kind of thing, like everything has the potential to slide away. It definitely fits with the thematics and the sound of the album.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for talking. That's all I got.
No, great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah, anytime.